even remember her name. That's my little rant. Hi y'all, this is Jace, she, they, and you found Jace Reads Romance, a community dedicated to empowering women about sex and sexuality through the reading of romance novels. It is time for another wrap up of what I read. This week is March 31st through April 6th. So make sure you've got your comfy sexy on. I've got a cute little crop sweatshirt, which doesn't mean you can't see the crop. Grab your beverage. I am drinking an alternative soda whose brand I'm not showing. I'm not sponsored by them, but they're really tasty. I read 5 books this week. All of them were digital, so I failed real hard on my physical book goal, but it is what it is. Fair warning, if you haven't watched one of these before, everything will be spoiled. At some point I might make an actual spoiler little thing, but that day is not today. The first book I read was Iron and Velvet by Alexis Hall. I have, I think, a hit or miss relationship with Alexis Hall. There are things that they've written that I've loved, and there are things that they've written that I've even DNF'd. This was on the list for Trans Rights Readathon. It was part of their master doc. It said sexual content, and I went, sure, why not? I read A Lady for a Duke last year by Alexis Hall, which kind of brought me back to them. I loved that book. That is an incredible book. I had read Boyfriend Material, enjoyed it, and I DNF'd Husband Material. So I have a real love-hate relationship with Alexis Hall, but I decided to give it a try. And it was not for me. This was a not for me. Again, real hard. The reason is too much plot happened for no explanation. This is a PNR world. There are fae, there are werewolves, there are vampires, there are witches, there are sentient statues now. There are so many types of creatures, and none of the lore of how these creatures exist in the world happens or is stated in this book. So I'm really confused. So Kate is our point of view character, and she is the daughter of a fairy queen, but I'm not kind of sure how, and her dad's eyes were taken, and sometimes she has powers and sometimes she doesn't. She has a PI company and her partner died, and she's a hot mess. She's basically paranormal Jessica Jones, and Jessica Jones is superhero, so I think kind of PNR, but not really. It's more like sci-fi. Who the fuck knows? But she's drinking, she's totally broke, she's a bit of a hot mess. And she gets brought in because someone dies right outside a vampire sex club brothel. And she meets one of the leaders of the vampires, Julian, who is a girl. Named Julian, but a girl. Kate and Julian are immediately sexed up about each other. Just so hot for one another. I have never seen anything less likely. It's not fated mates. It's not any of that. It's just suddenly, it felt unnatural to me in a way that so many other insta-love stories don't, and that threw me. So Kate's there to try and find the murder, and then Julian's hitting on her, and she also has an ex-boyfriend, even though she's actually gay, who's a vampire, who's kind of a stalker, and then we meet every single kind of fucking paranormal creature in this world without any explanation of their powers or their rules or any of it, and it means nothing makes sense, and it's really hard to follow, and more plot happens, which just feels like piling nonsense on top of nonsense. Okay, well now there are shifters because the person who died is a shifter, and Kate goes to talk to them at the funeral, and then the leader of the shifters starts to hit on her. Is that going to be a love triangle thing, or maybe everyone's attracted to Kate? I don't know, but I also don't understand the rules of the shifters. And so then Kate goes to her other ex-girlfriend. All of these, Kate's dated everyone apparently, irresistible, and dated everybody, who's a witch, and the witches, I wanted this book to be over so fast. And this isn't a long book. It's not even 300 pages. It's not even 300 pages. I wanted this book to be over at least 50 pages before it was, because by that point I just kind of threw away any hope of enjoying this book or feeling like I understood this world, and said I need this to be over with. I'm gonna lie here and read as fast as I can so that I can get through this as quickly as possible. If I could have faked an orgasm and had the book end immediately, I would have done that. Like, I would have faked an orgasm to finish this book faster. It is a multi-book series. I will not be continuing with it at all. And even though it said sexual content in the document, it wasn't even spicy. What did I say? I said it was a 2, but I could not tell you the spice. It's her and Julian. It's spicing, but I don't remember the spice even being that spectacular. I'll look at my notes in a second and see if I highlighted any of it. But really, for me, this was a big fucking fat no. If you want to read Alexis Hall, go read A Lady for a Duke. That is a phenomenal book. You can skip this one. Here's how, like, none of it makes sense. My dad was once the mortal consort of the Queen of the Wild Hunt, and by consort I mean, yeah. Jenny, my stepmom, eventually got him out, but the Queen kept his eyes. What? How? What? That is a huge thing. What? They found me on the doorstep a few months later, wrapped in a wolfskin in a basket made of briars. That is so much to unpack right there. In fact, there was one reformed sex demon working for a vampire prince. Julian is a vampire prince. Julian's a girl. I need to reiterate that. Vampire Prince Julian is a girl. And immediately Julian starts calling her sweeting. Page 53. For a dead woman, she seemed more alive than anyone I'd met in a long time. No. Okay, there's 55 pages in, there's some spice. I highlighted nothing about the spice, if that tells you anything. Oh, there is a Shakespeare joke that I like. Kate, the prettiest Kate in Christendom. If you know what that play is, put it in the comments. I have a note. Feels so fast. Wine, rose leaves, and Julian, my Julian. This is days, like maybe 2 days, and it's this intense. Like, I know you can make a lesbian joke if you want. You don't have to. You shouldn't. But this is a lot. This feels insane, even to me, someone who reads a ton of romance. There are people who fall in love in 2 days and truly fall in love. This didn't feel like that. This felt like nonsense. I do agree with this statement, though, minus the supernatural powers. You don't get to tell me what to do. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I just care about you. You only met me a week ago. Oh my God. But this one I do agree with. As a general rule, I'm suspicious of unassuming men in their late 50s because they're usually terrifying supernatural monsters. I mean, monsters is in general a lot of men in their late 50s. And then a now sentient statue shows up. Here's a note. That's the dumbest thing, you idiot. Kate, for no reason that I can understand, decides to pledge something to the witch, her ex-girlfriend, the witch. I don't know why. Well, too late now. I hoped I hadn't made a horrible mistake. I'm not a big fan of commitment at the best of times, and here I was mystically bound to the service of the Witch Queen of London. You're an idiot. And I don't know why. None of this makes sense. I feel like there was a really good insult. This is the one thing I do remember in this book enjoying. You impotent angst puppy. It's not worth having to read the book because it is in fact the last thing I highlighted on page 198. But I'm glad that I now know you impotent angst puppy. That insult is the best thing about this book. I gave Abby Jimenez like a teeny tiny little chance. I don't really trust her. I read The Friendship Zone, and that book emotionally destroyed me, and I don't necessarily feel like it redeemed itself at the end, and so I've put her on pause in general. But I decided to read the short story I had access to called The Fall Risk. This is very, very short, less than 100 pages. It is very cute. It's essentially a meet cute, so there's no spice whatsoever. It's a neighbors to lovers situation with a little bit of a romantic suspense thrown in there. We meet Seth first. Seth has recently broken his leg. He lives on the 2nd floor of an apartment, and in California, I believe, where they're not attached by an inside space. It's an outside staircase and landing between these 4 units. 2 up, 2 down, center staircase between the 4 of them. And he wakes up on Monday morning, walks out onto the landing, and the stairs are gone. Turns out that there were supposed to be repairs done on a different building, and instead they demoed the stairs on his building, so he is now trapped on the 2nd floor of his apartment building, and he meets the person who lives across the way named Charlotte. She's a bit of a recluse, they've never met, and immediately he is smitten. He thinks she is lovely, and he wants to get to know her better. And they are essentially stuck. She is very apprehensive, and we learn it's because she has a stalker and has been stalked for 2 years. He's threatened violence against her. She spent 2 years adjusting her whole life to be safe. She quit her job. She now works remote. She's isolated herself. She's really given up a lot because of this man who's been hunting her. For the next week, the two of them are trapped together on the landing, and they start to spend time with each other on this common space. Their friends bring them food and groceries, and their friends even hit it off, and they get to know each other in this really sweet and adorable way. Once their stairs are built, there's a social media post of hers that goes viral, or it goes up there, and her stalker finds it and sees it, comes after her, and ruining the story for you, she beats the crap out of him and he goes to jail. And it's great, and it's wonderful and empowering and all of those things. It's an afternoon. It's less than an afternoon. It's just a cute little amuse-bouche of romance and a little bit of romantic suspense. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm always gonna advocate for more spice. I feel like even if you've got only 100 pages, you can throw like 4 or 5 in there, some good old-fashioned action, and that didn't happen, but it was really nice, and her writing is good. Her writing style is lovely. I was afraid that something terrible would happen at the end of this, and I was proven wrong, which was great. I've only highlighted 8 things. If you're wondering about why this book exists, this is her dedication. For all the women who choose the bear, and all the men who do the work to understand why, may the forest be a little less scary one day. And honestly, with that dedication, that's pretty much everything you need to know about the setting and the feeling and the intention behind this story. Seth was a man I wouldn't mind meeting alone in the woods. So Charlotte's best friend is Izzy, and Izzy's been really helping her and protecting her as she's gone on this terrible journey with her stalker. Izzy, yeah? Red flag guys aren't your type. They're your pattern, which was a really, great moment when Izzy is dealing with some boy stuff of her own. They're cute. That's just a fun line. And I don't remember what she sends him a picture of exactly, but it's not what you think. So, Charlotte, he says, picking up immediately, did you just send what I think you sent me? An unsolicited dick pic? Yes, I did. So they're cute. That's literally all I have highlighted. Their names, Seth is Mexican-American, and that's it. For cuteness, and then if you want to watch someone beat the shit out of their attacker and their stalker, and finally beat the bear or the man, that's all I got. I highlighted even less in this next book, but it's not for bad reasons. The book is Day Death by Rebecca Quinn. It is the prequel to Ensnared, which is the first Brutes of Bristlebrook book. My God, so many B's. There are going to be 3 books, I believe, in that series. 2 of them are out. The 3rd one is not out. But this is the story of what happened. So if you haven't read the Brutes of Bristlebrook series, any of them, it is a post-apocalyptic America, specifically America. America was attacked. There were, I think, 18 different nuclear strikes, and the main series takes place years in the future, I think 5 years in the future, where it's just complete anarchy. It's the worst of humanity. If you can imagine, all separated, and the people in that series are living in the woods. They are isolated from everyone, and they are just, living life as they can, as best as they can, with what resources they can find and make and cultivate on their own. Day Death is the story of what happened the day America was attacked. She says you can, but I wouldn't read this book before Ensnared. I haven't read the 2nd book. I've only read the 1st one, but I wouldn't read it beforehand because this story doesn't give us a ton of character development. It's characters we already know and how they experienced this day, which really helps flesh out why they are the way that they are. But if you have no context for who these people are, I don't know if it would mean as much. This book, Day Death, Ensnared is lots of different points of view throughout the story. It's whoever's, telling the next bit of the plot. Day Death follows one character at a time. Each of the 6 characters gets their own chapter. First, it's the 5 men, and then our FMC Eden. And if you need the 5 men, it's Jacob, Jasper, Lucky, Bo, Dom, not in that order. There is a teeny bit of spice right at the beginning because the 5 guys know each other and stayed together because they were all at their dungeon, their sex club, when everything went down. So they were together. So there's a scene at the sex club before everything happens where you get a little bit of spice, but It's not enough to really make this a spicy book, and it's not part of the romantic story of the following books in the series. The story is kind of sad in that it's just the worst of humanity over and over and over. It's violence, it's anarchy, it's cruelty, it is every human for themselves. It is just what you hope doesn't happen in an event such as that. You watch the 5 guys work together. You get to see them as a unit at the beginning, how they tried to help, how they tried to save, how they aimed to do everything that their training as soldiers guided them to do, and what was successful and also what wasn't successful. It was a really good read as someone who's read Ensnared and did wonder what happened that day and kind of what caused this post-apocalyptic world. But like I said, I wouldn't read it before Ensnared. I highlighted 2 things because this is a history and not really a story. I don't even know who says this. In this beat before death takes us, it's not dying I fear, only eternity without him. And based on that, it's either like Dom and Bo, who are best friends, and they're like an MFM couple. They're looking for the F to their M space M. And then Jasper and Lucky have like some deep pining going on between the 2 of them to ruin Ensnared. I'm sorry, not sorry. You should know. I've reviewed that book. And then the second quote I've highlighted is, I wish we had a leader who stood for the right things, who tried. Someone who would bring our world together instead of splitting it apart. And I felt that. I feel that still right now in 2025. Which is also when this book came out. This book came out in 2025. So I feel like it definitely spoke to a lot of the feelings I have about the current state of the world. I enjoyed it. It just gives you a little bit more backstory to these characters. The next book I read was an arc for Give Me a Shot by Cadenet. Warning, this book is not listed as part of a series. It is clearly part of a series. By clearly, I mean only when you get into this book solidly and you meet some other people do you realize, hang on, I feel like, you know when you get that feeling about couples you're meeting, like you should know their story or they should have a deeper meaning to you? That's how I felt meeting some of these couples. And so I looked at Cadinet's other books and lo and behold, they were about these couples. So it is part of a series, but can be read as a standalone. I didn't lose anything. I didn't actually need to know how any of these couples got together, but it is part of the same fucking world. This book is about Jess and Mo, and while it is a rom-com at heart, it deals with some really heavy things. Jess just finished her PhD and has taken a teaching position in Michigan, so she's moved from her grad school city, which was in fact out of the country, to Michigan to work for a university. And she's got a lot of trauma. Her sister died a couple months ago and she is not dealing with her grief. Underline, capitalized, exclamation point, circle, circle, not dealing with her grief. Her sister's death has also caused a rift between her and her parents due to the circumstances of her sister's death. Which was not murder, but let's go with someone else's fault. And she has a lot of blame and resentment for her parents due to the circumstances surrounding her sister's death. So she is back in the States, not speaking to her parents, in a new environment, and to try and connect with something she loves, she finds a folk craft school that does archery. She used to do competitive archery and she wants to keep shooting. She wants to find a place to keep her skills up, to go, to relax, to turn her brain off. And it ends up being this folk school where they do things like milliners, which are hat makers, and blacksmithing, which is what Mo does. Mo is the MMC, and he is the sweetest, most wonderful man. And I love him. He's a blacksmith in his hobby life. He's an auto mechanic. He has a shop there where he employs a lot of women and people of color, and I love him so much. He's like a giant beast of a man with a giant beard, and he and Jess have a terrible meet not cute. There's a phrase and I can't remember what it is that's the opposite of a meet cute, where it's just a meet disaster. Mo has a space where he does his blacksmithing away from the school. the sink in his space is broken. And so the landlord said he can use the sink in the space next door. And he's never met the person who uses and rents the space next door. So it's late at night, he's blacksmithing, he goes into this space to wash his hands, and in walks a random woman who he scares the crap out of because he's a big hulking man in the dark in the space that's not his. And it turns out it's Jess, and that space that he was borrowing the sink in was her sister's space, and she's actually there to clean out her sister's space, which brings up a lot of trauma, a lot of big feelings. It's very upsetting, and Mo can sense that. He is diagnosed as a highly sensitive person, and that's not, and I just feel lots of feelings. It's a type of neurodivergence where literally stimuli, other people's emotions, just interactions, your body is highly attuned and feels them more acutely. And this is not the story of Mo being diagnosed or coming to terms with or anything. He has been diagnosed. He has his coping strategies. He knows how to exist in the world, but it is something that affects him greatly and affects his relationship with Jess because of that. And so they have this terrible not meet cute, and then because of their involvement at the folk school, they get roped into, voluntold to help with a fundraiser Ren fair that the school is putting on in order to raise funds for the school. They start to carpool, they spend time together. Jess notices almost right away that Mo is overwhelmed and can see him. And there's no judgment on how he reacts to the things around him. There's just understanding and empathy. And Mo sees the pain that Jess is in. And instead of trying to make her talk, he just lets her feel her feelings and aims to help her, and they develop a really sweet relationship where they are also so hot for each other. They are so hot for each other. They want each other's bodies so much, which makes the fact that this is a slow burn, lightly spiced book even more annoying. This also contains a third act breakup, one of those moments where just overwhelmed by her feelings and her lack of dealing with her grief kind of explodes, and then she says, "Oh, I don't want to make you deal with me and my feelings bad." And very quickly everyone in her life says, you don't get to make decisions for a grown man. If he says he wants to deal with you and be with you, then you have to respect that and let him be with you. While Jess doesn't have a relationship with her family, she has these really good friends from grad school who are there to support her and care for her in ways that just go above and beyond. Mo does have a very large family that he is a part of. That is who the other couples are, some of his siblings, and we see them. Something that threw me is Mo. Mo is short for Muhammad. Mo is described as big and dark hair and dark skin, and as are his family members. He makes a family recipe of a soup that I researched coming from Tangiers, and yet nothing is explicitly stated about his race or his culture or his history or his religion or anything. And it felt really odd to me that you would present this human who in my brain is a person of color or a person who is potentially even Muslim. I don't know, because you don't state it. And the thing about living in the Western world is unless you're really obvious and overt with it, your audience is going to whitewash. And I don't want Mo to be whitewashed. I want to know who Mo is. I want to know who this family is. And that was one of the moments where I thought maybe if I'd read the earlier books, I would have an understanding. Maybe it's spelled out in an earlier book. But if that's the case, then why is this not listed as a fucking series? Can't share any of the quotes directly because this is an arc, and things might have been edited between when I got the arc and when the release of the book is, but I'm going to share any notes that I wrote myself. There's this side character, Doug, and my first note about him is, he's gross. He's gross. Oh, there's some really cute helping. Jess's car breaks down and she takes her car to Mo's shop and he fixes it right away and works on it himself and cares for her. So I just have a note that says, helping. Okay, so my note is, what chronic illness is she about to get? Her joints are constantly aching. It's not a chronic illness. It's a physical manifestation of her grief that she's not dealing with. We do get what happened to her sister later, but it didn't happen for quite some time, and I found myself annoyed by that. So they mentioned what happened, like, whoa, what's happening to Cassie won't happen to you. You don't, I'm like, what happened to her? You've implied there is some fault, like, is she murdered? What do we need to know? And I wish I'd gotten that story a little bit earlier, potentially. I make a comment about, I can't believe we both like the Princess Bride movie, and my note is, only monsters don't like this movie. This is me being really crude, but when they do get together, she says it's just like riding a bike or something like that, about, because she hasn't done this in a while, and they make comments about how big he is, and my note is, if you're that big, you should finger her first. Which is not wrong. I'm not wrong. I like their nicknames. They develop these really cute nicknames because they're working on this Red Fair where they call each other my lord and my lady, which I think is adorable. And those are all the notes that I can show you. So, like, overall, really sweet and adorable book. I haven't read the other books by Cadenet, and honestly, if I had known that this was where it is, I think it's book 3 or even 4 in the series, or in her world, I might not have grabbed the arc because I would have assumed I needed the first couple. So in that respect, I'm glad I didn't, but I do wish that I had, or that the publishers properly explain that these are part of the same world and part of the same series. Last book I read this week is Jilted by V. Keeland. This is another arc, comes out in May of 2025. I have listened to audio books by V. Keeland through my Audible membership, but I'd never read a book by them. This is another really cute little rom-com. The cover for this and Give Me a Shot are both yellow, so it was a little bit jarring. I read them back to back just because when they were coming out. Oh no, it didn't come out in May. It comes out in April, not May. This story is pure, fluffy rom-com. In this story, we have Sloane, who writes for a bridal magazine. Unfortunately, Sloane was left at the altar about 6 months ago, so she's not really feeling the love or the appreciation for weddings that she used to. She's attending a wedding with one of her best friends who's a photographer for the magazine, and she knows that in the wedding party is the son of her boss's boss's boss, not the head of the editor, but the head of the publishing company that puts out the magazine. So she's trying to find that boss Ted's son in the wedding party. While she's there, the bridezilla, pulls Sloane in to wear a bridesmaid's dress. One of her bridesmaids' mom had a heart attack that morning and obviously isn't at the wedding. And so bridezilla, so she has even numbers, makes Sloane wear a bridesmaid's dress, and it's a terrible bridesmaid's dress, a really, really, really bad bridesmaid's dress. She is paired with a man named Wilder as the walk down the aisle happens. And Wilder, you can clearly tell, is a fuckboy. Yeah, that's really all you need to know. He's a flirt. He's clearly a fuckboy. And while there's chemistry, Sloane is really not interested. She's told herself she's taking a year from the date of her would-have-been wedding to just be alone, be single, and not deal with any romantic entanglements. Wilder respects that, but still gets his flirt on. Over the course of the evening, they banter, they dance. She makes a joke about wanting a cupcake really bad. She's a type 1 diabetic. I mentioned that because her having an insulin pump is actually commented on by the bridezilla. Oh, can you take that off? No, it's an insulin pump. I'm not taking off my insulin pump for your fucking wedding. Wilder finds a cupcake from the caterer and brings it to her. And at the end of the night, they're walking out, they're in the coat closet, and they have this massive makeout session, and they leave, never to see each other again. Later that week, the boss's boss, Ted, shows up in her office and says, hey, you went to this wedding, my son was in it. Turns out 6 of the guys from their fraternity all got engaged last year and they're all getting married this year. I think you should do a series on all of their weddings. My son will connect with you. And she's expecting someone else from the wedding party named Ted, in fact. But no, who walks in? It's Wilder, because Wilder is her boss's boss son. And now she has to work with him as she follows these weddings that he's a groomsman in. He's a groomsman in each one. So they're going to go to all of these weddings together. And she tells him, hey, I'm not dating. I'm not looking for it. He tries to pursue her, and he says, you know what? I'm gonna wait and prove myself by not fucking around until you're ready. She goes, cool, you're gonna be celibate? That sounds great. And he goes, oh no, I'm gonna be celibate. What are you gonna do? But he really likes her. On the side, Sloane has a wonderful family dynamic and family relationship that Wilder gets involved in. There's a family bar that's been open for multiple generations, and they are a blue-collar family, mainly cops, mainly firemen. So there's a lot of that old family love there. She lives in a multi-unit building owned by one of her brothers, where she lives on the top floor, brother lives on the first floor, dad lives on the bottom floor. And dad's getting up there. He's having some trouble moving around, walking. Wilder actually befriends her dad. Wilder, in fact, played rugby, was a very famous rugby star. He was trying to get his own team together and join the league. And he and her dad bond and become really good friends. And that friendship is really cute. As I mentioned, Sloane is a type 1 diabetic, and there is a blood sugar scare where she is hospitalized and collapses. So if that's something, that kind of medical stuff for type 1 diabetes is a bit of a trigger for you, please know that this happens. This is also a slow burn, if I remember. Let me double check that. Yeah, fuck boy. Literally my note. This was an easy read. It was a fun read. It was a light, fluffy rom-com. If you're looking for something that's just gonna let you turn your head off, the stakes are not that high in this. There's no life or death. There's no job at stake or it's just easy. There's good banter. If that's something you're looking for, this book is going to deliver. Because, again, this is an arc, I'm just going through my notes to see if there's anything I can share with you. My note is totally going to be the nickname, and in fact, Cupcake was his nickname for her. The moment when Wilder realizes he said he's going to wait 6 months for her and not fuck anyone is really funny. It's like, all right, man, you said it, and now you gotta live up to it. Oh, I want to read this line for you so bad. With her family being in the fire department and a lot of cops on the side of her family and around the bar and stuff, you'd think there'd be a lot of machismo or protecting of the girl, and there isn't. There's a lot of respect for her, and her dad says something to Wilder, and I loved it. This is, Seffi loves these, my producer for the podcast, loves forehead kisses. Forehead kisses are Wilder's move. This is a thing he does for affection. Got to the burn, it was slow. Oh my god, I totally forgot about this. Wilder has some past relationship baggage and trauma that is, honestly, it's very understandable, and I in fact really liked how they introduced it into the story. They had flashbacks, they really respected it. And instead of us witnessing him telling her the story, we got the flashback to what happened, which I thought was a really great way of handling it. However, in that history, there's a bit of a pregnancy scare, and I had a really frustrating moment of like, you've had this pregnancy scare, it's caused you a lot of trauma, and yet we don't talk about condoms. That felt disingenuous to me. And not even like a sign of, I trust you, I don't need one, but like no talk of condoms. Did you get a vasectomy? What's going on? In general, I liked it. Light, fluffy, easy. It was a good way to end the week. Those are the books that I read in the week of March 31st through April 6th. If you've read any of these, let me know in the comments. If you think you've got a book recommendation that I need to read, let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe, that I know you enjoy these videos and you want to see more of them. And until next time, this is Jace, holding space for you.